What you need to know about trademarks. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Legit Podcast Pro. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we're diving into a topic that is absolutely crucial for every podcaster out there, and yet it's often overlooked until it's too late. We're talking about trademarks, so stick around. So, whether you are just starting out or you've been in the game for a while, understanding trademarks can be a key to protecting your podcast brand and your content. So, let's just jump right in and start with the basics. What exactly is a trademark? Well, in the simplest terms, a trademark is a distinctive symbol or a word or a phrase that is used as a brand, affixed to goods or services, in this case, the podcast, to indicate its source or origin, the people or the company behind the show. By adopting and using a title that's distinctive and sets your show apart, you help audiences find you and separate you from the other shows out there. Now, excuse me. This is why, as tempting as it is to choose a show title that perfectly describes what your podcast is about, it's often better to be, well, a little bit fanciful and suggestive with the title and use a subtitle and the description fields to clarify and help with searchability in those podcast directories and search engines. The bottom line is you've got to stand out. You've got to set yourself apart and build clear connections between your services and you. Think about the Nabisco red triangle, or the word Oreo for cookies, or the Nike swoosh and the phrase just do it. I'm guessing that when we mention those things, your mind immediately connects to the company behind those products that carry those marks. So why does this matter to you as a podcaster? Well, because your podcast title and logo and any original phrases you might use for segment titles and things like that, those can become your brand identity. And in this vast sea of podcasts out there, well, your brand is what sets you apart. Now, it's easy to confuse trademarks with copyrights or patents. So let me just clear that up very quickly. Copyrights protect your creative works, the episodes themselves, any original music or scripts and the artwork and things like that. And patents are for inventions, new gadgets or technology. Well, trademarks are all about that brand identity I mentioned, your podcast name and logo and the kinds of things that signify your unique presence in the market. So let's move on now to why protecting the podcast title with a trademark registration can be so important. And the best thing to do is just, here's a scenario. Imagine this. You've built a solid listener base. Your content is unique. Your podcast name is catchy. And then one day, along comes another podcast with the same or a confusingly similar name. And that, if that's not bad enough, it's not just any podcast, but it's kind of lousy. It could tarnish your reputation because of its low quality content, or it has conflicting values with what you stand for and represent. This is what trademark law is designed to protect against. It's not just a legal formality. It's about safeguarding your hard work, your brand, and your podcast's reputation. Trademark protection begins from the moment you first adopt the brand. That's common law trademark protection. But the real protection comes from registering your trademark. Registration is handled on a nation by nation or country by country basis. So it's usually best to start by registering, at least first, in your home country, assuming that's where most of your audience is located. If you're here in the United States, or I would say if you're also in Canada, odds are most of your audience is in the US, and so that's the way to go. So how do you lock down trademark protection for your podcast? Well, first, you have to ensure that your podcast title or logo, whatever it is you're registering, is in fact distinctive, as I said earlier. The last thing you want to deal with is a rejection from the trademark office because the name is too similar to another one. So do your research, make sure it's distinctive, and if it's not, you've saved the money of filing an application that's not going to go through. Okay, so do a search to make sure there aren't other similar marks out there, and be aware, although trademarks are registered in classes of goods and services, it's still possible to have an infringement situation when a similar mark is registered in a different category, especially if there's still a likelihood of confusion between the two sets of goods, maybe because the kinds of goods and services are related, or the mark in question is a super strong, famous brand name. In other words, don't try to call your podcast Coca-Cola or McDonald's or Nike or things like that, or even just do it. All right, so assuming you have determined that the mark is distinctive and it's not too similar to another existing brand, then you apply for a trademark registration. Now, this process can involve several steps, including identifying the correct class or classes for your trademark, describing your podcast accurately and as broadly as you can without going overboard, and of course, submitting your application along with the fee to the appropriate trademark office. Here in the United States, it's called the United States Patent and Trademark Office, or USPTO. The government fees currently here in the US stand at around $350 per mark per class. And when we're talking about podcasts, I always recommend registering in the two different classes that both cover recorded audio entertainment services, because that's what a podcast is. And one of those also covers video if you're doing YouTube and those kinds of things. Now, you can try to do all this searching and registering yourself. It's an online web-based form, but it's not a simple one or a trivial thing to do. You'll certainly have better success by hiring a trademark attorney, yes, like me, to ensure your application is solid and to navigate the potential legal complexities. Yes, it does involve an investment, but it's about protecting your brand, and that really is priceless. So, what if you're on the other side of the coin? You receive a notice claiming that you have infringed on someone else's trademark. Well, first off, don't panic. And whatever you do, don't respond quickly without giving yourself some time to evaluate things and determine the right course of action. First, you have to assess the claim carefully. Sometimes they're kind of bogus, and then, the other side is really just bluffing or blustering, and they don't really have much legal ground to stand on. And in most of the rest of the cases, the issues can be resolved amicably if you take things through the right strategy. So get some legal advice, seriously. Even if you do decide to change your title or whatever, just caving in to the other side's demands could still leave you vulnerable to lawsuits and other problems. But understanding how to avoid infringement from the get-go is really key. Be diligent in that initial research, respect other people's trademarks, and again, when in doubt, seek legal advice. So do a search before you choose a title for a new show. And then if there's any kind of an issue or a possible issue, talk to someone who knows and can give you some advice. Now, if you find someone infringing on your trademark, well, you do have rights. Your course of action might vary from sending a cease and desist letter all the way to filing a lawsuit. Each situation is a little unique, so you have to talk to an attorney, someone who does this stuff, and decide on your best strategy. So there you have it, folks. Trademarks might seem like just another item on a long list of things that would be sort of nice to do when you're podcasting, but I really say this is sort of fundamental to your brand's longevity and success. So take the steps to protect your podcast, your title, your brand, and your opportunity to use your voice. Remember, this is about more than just legal protection. It's about building and safeguarding the legacy of your podcast, your ideas, your influence, and your impact. If you have more questions or need specific advice, I hope you'll reach out to me. I'm here to help you navigate the legalities. Go to firemark.com/trademarks if you'd like more information about this. And that way I can help you so your podcast can thrive. And I have actually prepared a free resource that can help you with figuring all this stuff out. You can visit podcasttrademark.com, give us your email address, and we will give you instant access to our Podcaster's Guide to Trademark Registration. So that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Legit Podcast Pro. And until next time, keep it legal, keep it professional, and most importantly, keep on podcasting.